Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, Week 2 in the books, Thursday afternoon. Time to update the ACC Power Rankings heading into Week 3, and what a week for the ACC on Saturday. Obviously, Duke going on the road, taking care of Northwestern, Cal going on the road across the country, and beating an Auburn team that I thought was going to be pretty dang good in 2024. And I'll say this about Cal's victory. Yeah, Auburn's quarterback play wasn't great. Cal was exceptional, especially on the offensive side of the football in the first half. I think they got a dude in quarterback Fernando Mendoza. Cal was not a team that many people had on top of the ACC power rankings heading into 2024. Hand up, I certainly didn't. This is going to be a really fun team in the ACC in 2024. Fired up to get into this one. Now, before we do, and as always, to the ACC fans, it's been a blast talking this conference. Obviously, a good start in my mind for the ACC. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. A lot of different ways you could go about stacking these football teams. So whether I'm sleeping on a team, whether I'm too high on a team, would love for you guys to let me know in the comment section. Without further ado, let's get into this one. Starting at the top, the Miami Hurricanes, I think continue to look like one of the better teams, not only in the ACC, but in the country. I think they have the best quarterback that we see in the ACC, although there are a couple of quarterbacks we'll talk about that I do like a lot. They have an elite front seven. I think they have the best line of scrimmage play that you might see in the ACC when you combine the offense and defensive lines. Miami's looking the part to start off 2024. Then this Clemson team, where I took a little bit of heat for having them in my title contender after that week 1 loss against Georgia. Look, if that offense can even come close to replicating what they just did to App State on Saturday night, this team's going to be a force in the ACC, because I still think this defense is one of the best defenses, again, not only in the ACC, but in the country in 2024. I think they have the pieces on the offensive side of the football to have a solid offense. Now it's all got to come together. And we saw it come together against App State, which was by far, Kay Klubnik's best game that he's had as a college football player. Now you want to see that get implemented week in, week out. And if this Clemson team can do that, they're going to be very dangerous in the ACC. I have them number 2 only behind Miami. Now, going to number 3, the Louisville Cardinals have certainly looked apart. And I was awfully close to taking Louisville, putting them up in that title contender tier. I want to see it against a little bit better of competition, but I continue to believe that if Tyler Shuck stays healthy for this Louisville team, it's a massive upgrade in terms of the quarterback they had in 2023. This was a team that competed for an ACC championship last year, went to the ACC conference championship with quarterback play that I would probably put below average in the ACC. I think there's a very good team around the quarterback. I think Tyler Shuck's a massive upgrade. I'm a massive fan of Coach Brom as well. This Louisville team's looking very dangerous. Number 4, Syracuse. As a Western New York guy, I've been to a lot of Syracuse games. There's a lot of buzz in Central and Western New York around the Syracuse program, and quite frankly, for good reason. We got up here last week at this time and said Kyle McCord is one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC. He's kind of turning into be one of the better quarterbacks in the country. You take a look at who has the most passing touchdowns through 2 weeks. It's Kyle McCord with 8. Just because you couldn't make it happen at Ohio State does not mean this kid, he got, at least in my opinion, extremely an unfair treatment in terms of how that situation left with Ohio State. I think Kyle McCord's a quarterback that a lot of programs would want starting for them. I think he's got the weapons on the outside, obviously highlighted by Rhonda Gaston. Now, I think the biggest storyline for Syracuse, why they're getting moved up a little bit, is I had big time concerns about the defense, specifically stopping the run after week 1 against Ohio. They go up against the Georgia Tech team that wants to run the football and run the football a lot. They're able to get it done at home and do a really good job stopping the run. I believe Georgia Tech only ran the football for around 3.5 yards per carry. This Syracuse team continues to impress. Throughout the first 2 weeks, I think they got the quarterback and some difference makers on the outside to be a dangerous team in this conference. Going to number 5, Cal. Again, I don't think that was a fluke in terms of what we just saw against Auburn on Saturday. Fernando Mendoza, not necessarily going to be a guy that gets a ton of national media recognition. This kid is a gamer at the quarterback position, extending plays. The pass catchers that I was very low on heading into 2024, made some exceptional plays for Fernando Mendoza down the field. The Cal pass rush absolutely whooped on what Auburn was trying to do on the offensive line. Really impressed. And that's a hard game to win, right? Jordan Hare Stadium, hard place to play, especially with all the buzz that's around that Auburn program. But more importantly, going across the country, taking care of business against an SEC team. This Cal team, very impressive. NC State. I think the game got away from them. I'm still a believer in NC State because I'm a believer in Dave Doran. Two things that kind of stood out in that football game. One, this Tennessee team is really freaking good. I have them as the number 4 team in the country. I think number 2, obviously, when you throw a pick six when you're still in that football game, and it kind of just went downhill from there. Grayson McCall hasn't been great. Again, I think that Tennessee team, specifically on defense, is very underrated. You want to see more from Grayson McCall because I think he has the pass catchers around him to be very to have a successful season. Now Grayson McCall just needs to play better. And so I think it will get better as time goes on. I'm not selling my stock on NC State. Obviously, not a great performance from this team, but I'm not going to punish them as much as maybe some others will with the loss to what I think is a really good Tennessee team. Boston College coming in there, they're legit dark horse. I mean, Thomas Castellanos is, again, not a guy that is going to go to the NFL draft and play quarterback in the NFL. This kid's a very good athlete. He commands the offense. Well, you're seeing him command the offense better. Last year, I feel like it was a lot of backyard football. It was a lot of just Thomas Castellanos being one of the best athletes on the football field, which he still is in 2024, but you're seeing a little bit better command, pushing the ball down the field a little bit more effectively. Have been very impressive along the lines of scrimmage on both sides of the football, specifically in that Florida State game. They're going to have a really big opportunity going on the road to play Missouri this week to really see how good Boston College can be in this conference. I'm going to leave Georgia Tech in that dark horse category. I still like what I've seen from Haynes King. I still think this defense is taking steps in the right direction. Maybe a little bit of an overreaction in terms of beating Florida State. That kind of we all thought Florida State was a much better football team when they had won that game, and so maybe a slight downgrade from Georgia Tech in terms of, all right, that Florida State win not looking as impressive. I think more importantly, obviously going on the road and not getting it done against Syracuse, but this is still a team that when you got Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, Eric Singleton, there are some difference makers on this Georgia Tech team that can make them dangerous. Going to the next tier, outside looking in, that's kind of how I'd phrase it. Florida State. We're gonna find out a lot about this Florida State team against Memphis. I think there is, and I think Florida State fans would agree with this. There are 2 directions that this Florida State program could go. And one, it's a rebound. You beat a really good group of 5 team in Memphis, and this team starts to gain some confidence and kind of looks like maybe we expected them to look. If they lose week 3 against Memphis, I think it might be not quit on the season, but I think DJU gets benched. I think they go to some of the younger quarterbacks, and I think it's going to be a rebuild year for Florida State, which I don't think is the worst thing if you're a Florida State fan. Like, hey, if we lose to Memphis and we're 0-3 to start the season, I want to see the young cats come in. But then Florida State, again, probably won't be as competitive, nearly as competitive as we thought this football team would be in the 2024 year. Virginia Tech continues to struggle. I mean, I get they beat Marshall. It's still choppy. And I think what's so surprising about this Virginia Tech team is they're pretty much running it back with the team they had in 2023 that was playing really good football down the stretch. And then all of a sudden, they're one of the teams that are really struggling to put it together to start the 2024 season. If there was a team that I thought would come out of the gates hot, especially with the schedule they had, Vanderbilt, Marshall, I thought it would be Virginia Tech, but they've been one of the more choppy, sloppy teams that we've seen and struggling to run the football on a consistent basis, which we thought would be the identity. I got some question marks about Virginia Tech 100% going to Pitt. I think it was their first time coming back from a 3-score deficit since like 1971. This Pitt offense is completely revolutionized. Eli Holstein at quarterback, obviously making the change at offensive coordinator. Desmond Reed at running back is a difference maker. And when he has the football in his hands, we have question marks about the Pitt defense. That is 100% true. but this Pitt team is actually going to be able to put some points on the board and put some points on the board fast. I mean, this is an explosive offense that's getting their guys in space. I look at Pitt and say it's a little bit of a different version of Pitt, 100%. That being said, I think for Pitt fans, they ain't complaining. This is the most fun it's been to watch Pitt football probably since Kenny Pickett. And so I think that's exciting for Pitt fans. UNC, look, they're 2-0. I don't really know what their identity is going to be on the offensive side of the football. They seemingly want to run the football, which would make sense with a guy like Amarian Hampton. Obviously, with Max Johnson going down, going to Harrell, I just don't know if this team has a real identity. I don't know if they have the offensive line to really lean on a run game and win a lot of football games in the ACC. They're definitely missing Drake May on offense, but they have some playmakers. The defense seemingly has taken a step in the right direction, but they haven't really played like that Minnesota team. I'm not very high on Charlotte. So we don't know what this UNC defense looks like against an offense that can really move the football. I still have my question marks about UNC post Drake May. And then maybe the team I missed on the most was SMU. I bought into the hype. Like I thought this SMU team did enough in the transfer portal to get the line of scrimmage play where it needs to be, specifically on the offensive line. That is not been the case. Obviously, waffling through quarterbacks throughout the first couple of weeks of the season, they're going to go with Kelvin Jennings, which I think makes sense. I think he's been the better quarterback, at least from what I saw against BYU on Friday night. That being said, this offense didn't score a touchdown against BYU. The part of the reason we were believing in SMU coming into the ACC was they're going to be able to put some points up on the board, and they have a sneaky solid defense. The defense hasn't really been the problem, but this offense has. Look, this SMU offense under Rhett Lashley wants to play with pace and rhythm. It's been anything but that. They're taking negative plays, they're taking penalties, they're turning the football over. I think SMU has the talent to be a better team than they are. And I don't know what the growing pains are about, but maybe since they're kind of going with Jennings at quarterback, you see them take a step in the right direction. But I have not been impressed with SMU to start the season. Going to Duke, nice win on the road against Northwestern. That's going to be a hard place to play because you're on a practice field, you're by the water. It was a sloppy game that you won in overtime. You're 2-0. Malik Murphy played a pretty solid football. I just have question marks about the overall talent level of this team. I don't think Northwestern's all that great. But I think if you're a Duke fan, you're happy to see this team kind of just winning some ugly football games early. And if Malik Murphy can continue to get comfortable in this offense, I do think there are, more and guys are some talent around him. We'll see about this Duke team. Stanford, nice rebound. Again, I thought Stanford played TCU quite well in the first half. Again, that's a team that I just don't know if the talent level's there in terms of competing in the middle to the top tier of the ACC. And then Virginia and Wake coming in the bottom, played each other week 2. Something had to break. Virginia ends up winning the game. I thought, quite frankly, Wake Forest looked like the better team. That's kind of where I'm at with those two teams. I think there's just kind of some differences in talent, right? Miami and Clemson, I think, clearly have the most talent in this conference, and I both think they're playing good football. You look at Louisville, I think they're good, but then there's kind of a cutoff, and I think it starts with Duke, Stanford, Virginia, and Wake Forest, and it's not me dragging those programs, but I just look at them and say, I don't know if they have the talent to compete with some of those other teams in the ACC. That's kind of how I drew the tiers. Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. I'm sure there are plenty of hot takes that you guys have to get off your chest as well. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.